Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parashat Shlach, Shabbos Mevorach and Tammuz. And we're going to speak about something which is very, very fundamental in our service of Hashem. And it's something that, as usual, Baruch Hashem, we think about Yiddishkeit a bit deeper. We begin to appreciate the contrast, how there's nothing like Yiddishkeit, and especially in the light of Chassidus. As usual, first of all, we'll start with charity. Since the war began, we've added tzedakah to what we do every single Friday. Gdel tzedakah shemakareves sagula. Mashiach should come now. We're going to say now a posik. And today we're going to speak on this pasuk. Niyum peshal lerosha bekeru libi ein pachad elihim leneged einov. I reckon, David says, crime's message to the criminal is that there be no fear of Hashem before his eyes. And the Alter Rebbe is going to, in chapter 30 of the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, Ameri dike diuk, Ein pachad elikim leneged einov. That this person, the Yetzer Hara, especially wants the person to be weak in relation to his eyes. And that's what it means, Ein pachad elikim leneged einov. Not that you don't see Hashem in front of you. You don't fear Hashem, like you're not fulfilling Shivisi Havai lenegdi Somid. No. That you don't fear, you don't act as if Hashem is in front of you. No, it means Ein pachad elikim leneged einov, in particular concerning your eyes, guarding your eyes. And in relation to what it says in this week's parasha, V'lo yisosuru achli levavchem v'achrei nechem asher atem zeinu machem. The parasha of Tzitzis, the pasuk says, and you shall not spy after your heart and after your eyes, after which you stray. So immediately Rashi brings the connection between this biblical lav. This is one of the 613 mitzvahs, the Shasal Loisese, one of the 365 negative commandments, that you shall not spy after your heart and after your eyes, after which you stray. Now, what that means exactly, we'll get into today a bit. And Rashi over here says, Kimoi mitura oretz, the word sasuru is similar to the word mitur, which means, we had in this week's parsha, from spying out the land. The heart and the eyes are spies for the body. They procure sins for it. The eye sees and the heart desires. And the body commits the sin. So, over here, we have two questions. One is a very obvious question, which is going to be related in particular to the story in our Parsha, with a tremendous lesson for life. And then there's the general question, general statement over here, which is about Judaism in general. And we'll start with the general question. We'll put that on hold. I'll first talk about this week's Parsha, and then we'll go back to the general issue. The general issue over here in general is that Yiddishkeit not only demands a person what to do and what not to do, but what to think and what not to think. Or how to feel and how you're not allowed to feel. Which is a tremendous statement that we're saying that there's legislation, there's law, there's halacha that governs how you're meant to think and how you're not meant to think, how you're meant to feel and how you're not meant to feel. Which, when you think about the contrast of how it is in civil law and secular law, it's impossible to make a rule that you're not going to think a certain way. Number one, who would know how you think? And the same thing is concerning feeling. Who would know how you feel? And number two, like, what's so terrible? Is it so bad? If it's not going to come out into an action and harm another person, who cares? So that's a statement, that's a general question about these mitzvahs. Now, there's another Loisa, very famous. Guess what? You might have thought about it. from the 10 Commandments, the 10th commandment. What is the 10th commandment of the 10 commandments? Leisachmeid. You're not allowed to covet. Eishes Riacho, another man's wife. Havodei v'amosei v'shoylei v'chamoyrei v'chola shel Riacho. You're not allowed to covet another man's wife, her slave, his amosei, shoylei, chamoyrei, any of his possessions. V'chola shel Riacho. So, this is something which is discussed. What's the difference between Leisachmeid and Leisasuru achre levavchem v'achreinechem asharatem zeinim achreim? So, some people say a point, we're just not going to elaborate on this today, even though this is, again, very, very interesting, is that Leisachmeid is more an Aveira bin Adam lechaveiroi. It's about not being jealous. A society where people would be jealous with one another would cause havoc and destruction, etc. To say today all the analysts and psychologists that are looking at the teenagers and saying that they're more depressed than ever, they attribute it to social media. Because they see what's going on by everybody else, and therefore it comes a situation of because everyone sees that so-called someone else might have seemingly a better life, so therefore everyone is jealous and everyone's depressed, etc., etc. I'm not making this up. This is what everyone is telling me, that's the explanation by the people that are studying the civilization these days, that the reason why depression has increased, even though it's an age of abundance, we have everything we want. And the answer is because everyone is obsessed with what the other person has. And therefore, they're lacking something. Okay. So, Leisachmeid is more of a comment about Ben Adam L'Chaveirei, jealousy, and how society would not be able to function as a healthy society if there was jealousy rampant. Each person was jealous from the other person. It's more a statement about evil itself. Something which is evil, something which is wrong, even if it doesn't bring to anything else in action or even in speech. But mitzad the etzem zach, you're not allowed to think that way because it's corrupting. You're not allowed to think that way because it's contaminating. You're not allowed to think that way because it's impure. It's against God. It causes a negative impact in the world also. But that's a general statement. Leisachmeid, do not covet, is bin Adam l'chaveirei, le'sesurach levavchem is bin Adam l'mokim. We're moving away from that now. I'm just wanted to bring out that there is a similar lav, and not stam, but from the Aseres HaDibros in Leisachmeid, and the common denominator between both is we're talking about an emotion. And that's the beauty and the awesomeness of Yiddishkeit. We're saying, Leisachmeid, you're not allowed to be jealous. That means something that's an emotion. Even if it would never come out into action. The mere fact alone that you're jealous, you transgressed one of the 10 commandments. And the same thing over here. You shouldn't turn astray from your eyes and your heart. We're talking about we're talking about negative feelings, negative emotions, to being arousing yourself, being in a state of arousal towards negative things. Okay, we'll get back to that later. Let's go back to our immediate parsha. The second question, which some people ask, is the pasuk says, after your hearts, and after your eyes. Shouldn't the order have to be reversed, especially as Rashi himself says it in that way? Everyone knows, ha'ayin royer, v'halev chomed. The eye sees and the heart desires. That's the whole basis of advertising in the modern society. They make the advertisements look very, very attractive, to say the least. So it's ha'ayin royer. You see the advertisement, v'halev chomed. I have to have that. And Rashi over here says, over here he says, Alev v'einayim emiraglim. He starts off, Alev v'einayim, interesting. because the pasuk says v'leisasura achil levavchem, and then he says ayin roya v'alev chaimed. So shouldn't the pasuk have said v'leisasura achil einechem v'achil levavchem? So one of the answers, which I'm ready to answer, is in relation to this week's parsha in particular. That in some cases, where does the problem start? You already had a preconceived desire. And then, einechem, you looked at a certain circumstance a certain way. And this answers another famous question concerning the meraglim. L'chayra, 12 spies went out. 10 people saw it one way, and 2 people saw it another way. What's so bad? First of all, the question is, I don't understand, they saw different things. If they're all looking at the same picture, how come they didn't come back with the same report? Why did 2 people say one report and another 10 people say it differently? We're talking about the X-ray, we're talking about spies. If they're a reconnaissance mission, so imagine we had today drones that do this job. Can you imagine we're going to come back and say the drones took different pictures? What do you mean? The X-rays don't lie. Take it to the camera. It doesn't lie. Why over here do we have 2 different stories? So the answer is, I'm waiting to answer, that, as we say many times, it's not what you see, it's how you see it. It's all about interpretation. The spies, besides Yishu and Kalev, even though Rashi says of the Ba'isashok Ksherim, but you have to say that they were still stuck. It was limited. Their Ksherim was limited. In other words, they really didn't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because life in the desert was good. As the Alter Rebbe explains in Pashas Mishlach and the Likutei Torah, they wanted to remain spiritual. It's great if Hashem takes care of your clothes, if Hashem protects you. There's Hanani HaKoved, and there's the Be'er Shel Miriam, and there's the man. You don't have to work the land. There's no such a concept as Monday morning back to the office. Samachaya. We're Pasha living in the palm of Hashem. Mamish surrounded by total spirituality. And according to some places, the Rebbe's Masber, that their sin was that they were ahead of time. They were holding already Mashiach Dik. Like after the job. We finished elevating the world, so to speak. They weren't. But I'm saying what they were already aiming for and looking for was to be in a state of Mashiach. We finished doing the job of dealing with plow machines and planting and working. Life was about cleaving to Hashem. That's it. So therefore, they milchatchila felt this way. They were not happy to go into Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, when they went and they looked at the land, they saw giants. They saw certain negative things. Masha'en King, Yeshua and Kalev, which were Mekusharim, completely bottled, nullified to Hashem. Unlimited subservience, absolute obedience to Moshe Rabbeinu and to what the Eibishter wanted. So therefore, they were completely gung-ho. They knew the Eibishter wanted them to go into the land. So therefore, whatever they saw as positive. You know the famous saying, what's the difference between a negative person and a positive person? The positive person finds a solution to every problem. The negative person finds the problem to every solution. So this was the difference between Yeshua, Kalev, and the rest of the Meraglim. The rest of the Meraglim, the problem was they already had something negative, something toxic that was in the heart. And then they interpreted everything subsequently negative. They saw it differently. Therefore, over here, in this week's parsha, and we're talking about the connection between what says over here, that comes in continuation in the parsha of the story with the spies, we say that was the problem. It started with levavchem, something that was negative inside, and then later, consequently, it affected their einechem. But generally speaking, we say ayin roya v'alev chaimed. Therefore, you have to be very careful with your eyes, Because if you see something which is negative, then it's going to impact you. You're going to desire it. Okay, now let's talk about this lav. There's a Gemara. I think the Gemara is in Brachas. Tafid Beis Amud Beis, and the Gemara says like this: Achei levavchem zuminus. Achei levavchem means opinions, attitudes of heresy. That means you're not allowed to have thoughts like Hashem is limited, or maybe there's no Hashem, or he doesn't know what he's doing. Chas v'shalom, chas v'shalom. That's ideas of heresy. You're not allowed to think those thoughts. Achrei nechem zehira avera. That's thoughts of immodesty. That's what the Alter Rebbe brings in chapter 11. Thoughts of Zachar and Nekeva. See there. So all thoughts of immodesty are hiruri avera. That's called hiruri avera. And that's what's not allowed over here. What we usually call as a grabe machshava zaros. That's hiruri avera. And that's achrei nechem. In other words, atem zoinim, the Gemara says, zehirur avodah zara. Those are thoughts of idolatry. Not committing idolatry, but thoughts of idolatry. Heresy doesn't mean you serve another God. It just means you don't believe in the Eibishter Rachman al-San, or you have thoughts about the Eibishter that are wrong. Avodah zara means getchkes, thoughts of different religions, different gods, etc. Okay. So this is all included in this week's parasha when it says, so let's get back to we started today. How awesome is Yiddishkeit? That Yiddishkeit puts a legislation, it puts a law on your feelings. So let's go talk about Tanya a bit. And what we're going to learn from this is the central character of the Alter Rebbe's masterpiece is the Beinoni. And the unbelievable empowerment and sense of empowerment that you get when you learn the Beinoni is that we're talking about the average man. And he's not somebody who's a great scholar. He's not someone who's a profound thinker. And he's not a great sage. And at the same time, he doesn't have great emotions. He's not full of passion towards Hashem. He's not necessarily very excited. But what's his tremendous quality? Kabbalah Seil Malchus Shamayim. He's committed and he's loyal to Melech Malchei Amlach HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You could say he's a compliant citizen, which means he knows one thing. There's Hashem. Hashem is his boss. Hashem is his authority. Hashem is king, and I am his follower. And now I have to know, what does it mean to be a good citizen? What does it mean to be a loyal subject? What does it mean to live the life, the spiritual life that's demanded of every Jew? You want to know what it means to be living Jewish? Living Jewish means that every single person, Mr. Average, Mr. Plain, Standard, is that you're not allowed to have even thoughts about doing something wrong. Wow, that is the standard. Now, how do we see it? I don't want to get into elaborating now. Chapter 11 in Tanya, and chapter 12, and chapter 13, and chapter 29. But there's a couple of places where the Alter Rebbe says that the Beinoni is Eine Oile B'daitoi Lasi Se'iser. By the Beinoni, which we're all supposed to aspire to, it wouldn't enter his mind to actually do the thing which is prohibited. So what does that mean? So to give a very simple example, what that means is, imagine someone who smokes. Imagine someone who smokes. And this smoker says that when you smoke after a meal, it's very enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. So a regular Fruma Yid would never consider actually lighting up on a cigarette, lighting a fire on a Shabbos, even though The thought that a cigarette right now after the Friday night meal would be very geschmack, that could enter his mind. But the thought of actually lighting up would never enter his mind. Well, let's give another example. It's Pesach, you're not allowed to have pizza. This person loves pizza. In his regular day-to-day life, he doesn't go by 3 days that he doesn't have a pizza or drink a beer. That's who he is. What can you do? During Pesach, 8 days, no pizza, no beer, he's suffering. So the thought enters his mind, it'd be so geschmack to have a beer right now. It would be so geschmack to have a pizza right now. But would he actually consider drinking a beer? No way. Why? It's just not an option. Why? Because it's not allowed. So this is the power of self-discipline of Kabbalah Seil, that even if you're not Mr. Jew scholar, you're not Mr. Jew rabbi, you're not Mr. Jew spiritual leader, but nevertheless, your self-discipline is so strong and your commitment is so strong to the program, to the code, that it's not even oile b'daitoi to actually do something wrong. So, and the same thing is true. Let's say we talk about Leisachmit for a second in the modern world, and I don't want to elaborate. And someone will speak to you and say, Leisachmit Eisha Sariyecha. How could that be possible? You're a human being. You might have desires. And you give a simple analogy. You're going with your child shopping. And imagine there's an aisle of candies, that the entire aisle of the candy store is treif. The first time you came to that store and they had this aisle of candies and your child was in the trolley and went shopping with you, the whole time they were saying, can I have this, can I have this? And they were starting to cry. And you just told them it's treif. Next time you come to that shop, your child will not even ask if they can have that candy. Why? It's just not an option. Since it's not an option, there's nothing to talk about. It's treif. Once something's treif, you don't even consider it whatsoever as something which enters your brain space, and therefore you don't desire it. And Koshkem Kal V'Chomer, to actually consider it as an option in reality. So this is one of the lessons over here with the Veloisa Suru, Achel Vavchem V'Achenechem, Asher Atem Zoinem Achreim, which could also include Hirur Aveira, which is thoughts of sin, which is, as we mentioned before, what Hirur Aveira means. So how can we talk like that to a normal person who's a human being that might have desires, and we're commanding him, you're not allowed to have this desire? And the answer is one answer. The Gewalt from Kabbalah Seil, with the power of seriously making a commitment, you can reach the level where and therefore you wouldn't think about it for another second. Not that it's necessarily the exact same thing right now. I don't want to get into it. Okay, so now let's take it a step further. In general, if we talk about a Yid, we say, I'm not saying it's mamish the same thing. I want to set the standard. And like we said in the beginning of today's share, the contrast. Could you imagine thinking about life? And we talk about what does it mean to be an elevated person? What does it mean to be a person that lives with meaning and purpose? And then we're going to start talking about thoughts that are in your mind. Thoughts that are positive thoughts, constructive thoughts, or thoughts that are negative thoughts and destructive thoughts. And we're going to say that the Jew is supposed to be which means a meeting of the minds. In your mind should be all the more Torah thoughts. Or as a chassid you say, you should be looking at the world through the lens of the Rebbe. The Rebbe's Torah, the Rebbe's Sichas, the Rebbe's Maimorim, Chassidus. And the same thing in your heart. There's damis alabeire. Your heart should be filled with love towards another fellow Jew, love towards spirituality, etc., etc. So it's a whole different thing. I remember once, just in a humorous way, I was once in Crown Heights and I was walking past a driveway and I saw a sign that it said in the driveway, "Don't even think about parking here." And I thought to myself, wow, this guy's telling me how to think. Don't even think about parking here. You understand? And it's the same thing over here with Yiddishkeit. When it comes to certain things, don't even think these destructive thoughts. And that's a beautiful, beautiful message for Yiddishkeit, for the person who's Yismach Leiv, Mevakshe Hashem, for the people that are seekers. They're happy to hear of a standard where I'll be able to reach a level of refinement that I would never even contemplate or consider something that's actually something that would be bad. Today is my Yom Haledes Chav B'Sivan, so first of all I want to give everyone a bracha from the depth of my heart. Everyone should be blessed and blessed and blessed with the power that Torah's MS says that everyone's birthday is Mazoli Goiver. So it's become the custom lately that everybody that's a birthday blesses and blesses, that everyone should have all the brachas b'teiv and the Revanigla. My birthday is in Chav B'Sivan, which is in Parashat Shlach, and the Yom speaks about tzitzis, and I got an answer twice from the Rebbe about tzitzis. One was when I was a child, I don't know how old I was, maybe 11. I was accident prone. I had many, many accidents. And I don't know who wrote into the Rebbe, someone from my family, and the Rebbe said, check his tzitzis. And obviously when you have a child, usually the tzitzis is not kosher. I don't want to say usually, sorry. But it's very common. So we changed the tzitzis. And then when I was 19 years old, I wrote a long letter for the Rebbe, bearing my soul, who I am, etc., etc. And the Rebbe answered, in all the above, as according to the advice of the Mashpia, bedikas tefillin v'talis cotton kosher. So to me personally, I got twice an answer from the Rebbe about talis cotton, about the tzitzis. And I'm mentioning it especially this year. This is the first time we've reached Parashat Shlach since the war started in October. And as everyone knows, there was an amazing Yisraelis by the entire Jewish nation in Eretz Yisrael, with the soldiers, by the tens of thousands that wanted to wear tzitzis because it's a shmirah, it's a physical protection. And we've seen videos after videos of different observant Jews, Charedim, Fruma Yidden, Chassidim, making tzitzis. Women were making tzitzis. And they were doing this non-stop at the beginning so that every single soldier could have a pair of tzitzis. So maybe should help. And in the merit of the unbelievable status of Klal Yisrael right now, in the union of tzitzis, we should remember the significance of tzitzis not only as a physical protection, but also as a spiritual protection. Ashrei, how does it go? No, Yisrael Hashem b'chol espor. Look at the Jewish nation. Look how we work on ourselves. Look at what Yiddishkeit means. Leisach moed and leisasura achil vavchem achreinechem. How amazing is Avodas Hashem and Torah Mitzvahs, that part of the area of spiritual development and advancement is talking about emotions and thoughts and working on a person's emotions and thoughts to refine them to reach a level which is the ultimate to a certain extent. And this is all the Davar HaShavu L'chol Nefesh. We're talking Beinani level. Shulchan Aruch. This was the mandate of every single Jew. Not something great, not something glorious, but this is the standards for everybody. The Eibusher should help. We're coming to Shabbat Vorchim, Chedesh Tammuz, and we're coming to the big day of Gimel Tammuz, and we're coming also to Yud Beis Tammuz, and the merit of all these holy days, and of our Aveda, we should come to the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Yad Mamish, posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.